Human religion in Buddha education মানৱ ধৰ্ম পাৰ্ট 34 নমো বুদ্ধায় মানৱ ধৰ্মৰ এই 34 নম্বৰ অংশটোত আজি আমি কিছুমান মহান ব্যক্তিৰ গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ মতামত দাঙি ধৰিবলৈ প্ৰয়াস কৰিম। আধুনিক যুগৰ প্ৰতিভাশালী বৈজ্ঞানিক বুদ্ধিজীৱী দাৰ্শনিক পণ্ডিতসকলে বুদ্ধৰ শিক্ষাক কেনেকৈ আঁকোৱালি লৈছে আজিৰ এই 34 নম্বৰ অংশটোত তাকে অলপমান আলোচনা কৰিবলৈ লৈছোঁ। বুদ্ধিজম ইন দ্য আইজ অফ ইণ্টেলেকচুৱেলছ গ্ৰন্থত বহুতো মহান পণ্ডিতৰ মহা মূল্যৱান উক্তিবোৰ পোৱা যায়। এই সামান্য লিখনিটোত সেই সকলোবোৰ উল্লেখ কৰিব পৰাটো সম্ভৱপৰ নহ'ব, তথাপিতো সামান্যভাৱে মাত্ৰ কেইটামান উল্লেখ কৰিবলৈ চেষ্টা কৰিম। উল্লেখ কৰাৰ উদ্দেশ্যটো হ'ল আধুনিক বিজ্ঞানৰ যুগত বুদ্ধ শিক্ষাৰ প্ৰয়োজনৰ ওপৰত গুৰুত্ব দিয়াটো। A cosmic religion. The religion of the future will be a cosmic religion. It should transcend a personal God and avoid dogmas and theology. Covering both the natural and the spiritual, it should be based on a religious sense arising from the experience of all things, natural and spiritual, as a meaningful unity. Buddhism answers this description. Albert Einstein. Next, to win peace. The question that inevitably suggests itself is how far can the great message of the Buddha apply to the present day world? Perhaps it may apply, perhaps it may not, but if we follow the principles of enunciated by the Buddha, we will ultimately win the tranquility for the world. Nehru. Persecution of the great religions of history, I prefer Buddhism, especially in its earliest forms, because it has had the smallest element of persecution. Bertrand Russell. Knowledge is the key to higher path. Without sensuous pleasure, would life be endurable? Without belief in immorality, can man be moral? Without worshipping of a god, can man advance towards righteousness? Yes, replies the Buddha. These ends can be attained by knowledge. Knowledge alone is the key to the higher path, the path, the one worth pursuing in life. Knowledge is the which brings calmness and peace of life, which renders man indifferent to the storm of phenomenal world. Professor Carl Pearson. Rational analysis. Buddhism is the only great religion of the world that is consciously and frankly based on a systematic and rational analysis of the problems of life and of the way of its solution. Moni Baghi. Enemy of religion. There is little of what we call dogma in the Buddha's teaching, with a breadth of view rare in that age and not common in ours. He refused to stifle criticism. Intolerance seemed to him the greatest enemy of religion. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. No unkind word. There was never an occasion when the Buddha flamed forth in anger. Never an incident when an unkind word escaped his lips. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. No persecution. There is no record known to me in the whole of the long history of Buddhism throughout the many centuries where its followers have been for such latent periods supreme of any persecution by the Buddhist of the followers of any other faiths. Professor Rice Davids. Sectarianism, most new-faced of some other religions, are controlled by their guru and are forbidden to read the scriptures, doctrines, magazines, booklets, and texts of other religions. This very rarely happens within Buddhism. Fra Khantipalo. The five precepts. The five precepts indicate five arterial directions in which the Buddhist self-control is to be exercised. Thus, the first rule calls upon him to control the passion of anger. The second, the desire for material possession. The third, the lust of the flesh. The fourth, cowardice and malevolence, cause of untruthfulness. And the fifth, the craving for unwholesome excitement. Edmund Hallmans. Human destiny. Over great areas of the world, it still survives. It is possible that in contact with Western science and inspired by the spirit of history, the original teaching of Gautama, revived and purified, may yet play a large part in the direction of human destiny. H.G. Wells. Democracy. Buddhism was a democratic movement which upheld democracy in religion, democracy in society, and democracy in politics. Dr. Ambedkar. World culture. Buddhism has done more for the advance of world civilization and true culture than any other influence in the chronicles of mankind. H.G. Wells. Man gives law to nature. Law in the scientific sense is essentially a product of human mind and has no meaning apart from man. There is more meaning in the statement that man gives law to nature than it is converse that nature gives laws to man. Professor Carl Pearson. Man can cease to be crushed. Man is greater than the blind forces of nature because even though he is crushed by them, he remains superior by virtue of his understanding of them. Again, Buddhism carries the truth further. It shows that by means of understanding, man can also control his circumstances. He can cease to be crushed by them and use their laws to raise himself. Pascal. Buddhism and modern science. I have often said and shall say again and again that between Buddhism and modern science there exists a close intellectual bond. Sir Edwin Arnold. Buddhism copes with science. If there is any religion that would cope with modern scientific needs, it would be Buddhism. Albert Einstein. Buddhism begins where science ends. Science can give no assurance herein, but Buddhism can meet the atomic challenge because supramundan knowledge of Buddhism begins where science leaves off, and this is clear enough to anybody who has made a study of Buddhism. For through Buddhist meditation, the atomic constituents making up matter have been seen and left, and the sorrow or the unsatisfactoriness or dukkha of their arising and passing away, dependent on cause and condition, has met itself with what we call a soul or Atma. The illusion of Sankhya Ditthi, wrong view, as it is called the Buddhist teaching. Egerton Baptist. Buddhism in Buddhism. Buddhism and Jainism were certainly not Hinduism, and even the Vedic Dharma, but they arose in India and were integral parts of Indian life, culture and philosophy. Buddhist or Jain in India is a 100% product of Indian thought and culture. Yet, neither is a Hindu by faith. It is entirely misleading to refer to Indian culture as Hindu culture. Nehru. It is entirely misleading to refer to Indian culture as Hindu culture. Nehru. Buddhism and modern science. I have often said and shall say again and again that between Buddhism and modern science there exists a close intellectual bond. Sir Edwin Arnold. Buddhism copes with science. If there is any religion that would cope with modern scientific needs, it would be Buddhism. Albert Einstein. Buddhism begins where science ends. Egerton Baptist. Blossom of human tree. This is the blossom on our human tree which opens in many myriad years, but opened fills the world with wisdom's scent and love's dropped honey. Sir Edwin Arnold, Light of Asia. Buddha's method. If any question has to be considered, it has to be considered peacefully and democratically in the way taught by Buddha. Nehru. We are impressed by his spirit reason. When we read Buddha's discourses, we are impressed by his spirit of reason. His ethical path has its first step right views, a rational outlook. He endeavors to brush aside all cobwebs that interfere with mankind's vision of itself and its destiny. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. Cool head and loving heart. The most striking thing about the Buddha is almost a unique combination of cool scientific head and profound sympathetic of a warm and loving heart. The world today turns more and more towards the Buddha, for he alone represents the consciousness of humanity. মণি বাঘী। জগতৰ আগশাৰীৰ বৈজ্ঞানিকসকলে, চিন্তাবিদসকলে, দাৰ্শনিকসকলে, গৱেষকসকলে, বুদ্ধিজীৱীসকলে সকলোৱে বুদ্ধৰ শিক্ষাক গুৰুত্ব দিছে, প্ৰশংসা কৰিছে আৰু বিজ্ঞানসন্মত বুলি স্বীকৃতি দিছে। মানৱ সমাজৰ বাবে প্ৰকৃত মানৱ ধৰ্ম বুলি গণ্য কৰিছে। মানৱ ধৰ্মৰ 34 নম্বৰ অংশটোৰ আজিলৈ ইমানতে সামৰণি মাৰিলোঁ। ভৱতু চব